Greetings, everyone. Here we are with another Dungeons and Dragons 2024 video. This time covering the new monster manual for Dungeons and Dragons 2024, or 5th edition, or 5.24, or 5.5. But I prefer Dungeons and Dragons revised 5th edition as a term for this. As I've already said this before, my operating theory is they originally wanted to call this Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, but another company beat them to the punch on using the trademark for Advanced 5th edition. So there you go. But of course, they could have probably gone with Dungeons and Dragons 50th Anniversary Edition too. So personally, it's either 50th Anniversary Edition or revised 5th edition would be the best too. They also hashtag very well. So this is the new monster manual, and I'm going to answer the most important question of all at the very end of this video. If you are not planning on doing the 2024 version, should you consider picking this up if you want to do the 24, if you just wanted to play the 2014, run the 2014 version of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So there you go. First and foremost, notice that this book is a little bit more chonky. I got the regular cover overall. I personally don't ever buy the deluxe or premium covers because there's really no such thing as value added for those premium covers. This is a hardcover already, so there's no point in spending $10 more just to have a different piece of artwork on the covers. The book works the same any which way. I would understand if it was a premium a version of the book, if it, say, like had a bonus poster inside of it or something else was added to it for being the premium version. But considering that it's not the premium alt covers are not containing any extra information or content to them besides the different artwork, it's not a good value proposition. First and foremost, as we open up the book, here we have this nice little section here of all the table of contents section. We have the short little list of contents denoting how to use the monsters, stat block overview, monster entries, parts of the stat block, running a monster, the list of monsters A to Z, Appendix A, animals, Appendix B, monster list by monster conversions, monsters by habitat, monsters by creature type, monsters by group, monsters by challenge rating. And then we have the index of stat blocks right in the front of the book. So we go all the way from Aarakocra Aeromancer on the first page to a Lich in the last spot on the first page. And on the following page, we go from lion all the way to zombie. There's this nice little handy blockout section right here that says what's new in the 2025 version, which makes things complicated because the exact terminology used often for this is either D&D 5.24 or 5.5 or Dungeons and Dragons 2024 edition. Those are the most three common ones. So the fact that they are saying a 2025 version is just an extra level of complication that is probably not appreciated by people who are not super in depth on all their information about the current events of Dungeons and Dragons. That might confuse them that there might be a 2025 version, and then a 2026 version, a 2027 version, a 2028 version, and so forth going into the future. And that would be a horrible, horrible situation if Wizards of the Coast started doing that, because people are probably going to burn their book, go into a rage and burn their books in that situation. Well, not burn their books, but it'd be a lot of recycling of information going from one to the next. This goes over how to use the monsters. This overviews the different sections of the stat blocks. listing out the different categories, nice and clean overall, which is very nice for a new dungeon master. I do happen to say that in this book, they do a very good job of doing the basics, of walking you through all the fundamentals of you needing to read a stat block, and even gives you a good framework for the hit dice by size creature. Now, this, a lot of people don't think about this, and this is probably a good topic for tabletop wisdom at some point, but home brewing monsters hit dice by changing their size of a monster. So you take a tiny creature and you blow them up to a large, and you simply just change from a D4 as a hit die to a D10 would be a very good option. There's also my standard rant about terminology and concepts. They refer to this section right here as average HP per die, or will be what for a D4 would be a 2.5 hit points. That is technically incorrect. It will be 2 hit points or 3 hit points. It'll be rounded up 1 or down. Typically, it would be rounded down in most with your characters, but some strange reason when it comes to hit dice for your characters or for monsters, it's rounded up to the nearest large unit, which often in case would result in that being 3 for a D4 or 2 in the case of some situations. But the technical correct term for that, if I believe I'm correct, is actually the median in HP per dice, not average. Because you can't roll a D4 and get 2.5 hit points out of it. Not to mention, average is actually not a real concept in rolling dice, as trust me, if you ever roll enough dice, keep track of what your numbers are. It's not going to be near your average. So moving on from that mess of a conversation, and moving on to there's speed, ability scores, skills, resistance, and vulnerabilities. There's an important change when it comes related to resistance and vulnerabilities, as well as immunities, that they have removed the concept of magic resistance or non-magic resistance from most of the stuff. So there's no such thing as resistance to a non-magical fire. It's just simply, are you resistant or immune to fire or not? Or bludgeoning or not? They added a nice little section on gear to the stat blocks, and a nice little overview on equipping a monster with other items. They walk you through all the essentials for the creatures, as well as experience points by challenge rating, ranging all the way up to 30. Personally, I feel that they should actually extend it past 30 to 40. At least giving you that extra range to homebrew or design creatures way more powerful. But they could release that in a future monster book. So there you go. You have all the basic descriptions of your traits, your actions, saving throws, damage notations, multi-attack, spell casting mechanics, bonus actions, reactions, legendary actions, limited use instructions, how to interpret recharge or X times a day or such and so forth. Essentially Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition stuff. And then we're on to the monsters. Pretty much nearly almost all monsters in the book have a piece of artwork, but not necessarily all variants of every type of monster. So sometimes you'll have, so like in the case of Aarakocra, there's 2 different variants, the Aarakocra Aeromancer and the Aarakocra Skirmisher. You got the Aarakocra Skirmisher down here, and your Aarakocra Aeromancer up here. You got an Aboleth over here, and all the standard information. There is very basic lore information on the monsters, and there's a larger focus on the artwork overall. However, some monsters, say like the aboleth, still has a large amount of lore included with it, along with its large stat block. Most times, the stat block is contained on one page in the book. However, there are exceptions to this, as you might see in a moment. You got animal lords. You have various dice rolling random tables determine what type of animal lord, which determines what feature might be included on it. You got a few different animated objects, such as your animated armor, your animated broom, your animated flying sword, and your animated rug of smothering, all included in this photo right here. I would have also loved more animated items, say like an animated axe or an animated shield or something or other. You have your arch-hag, your arcanoloth, and so forth. Now, you have noticed that other than the Aarakocra so far, all the monsters are de-grouped. That is a general goal that Wizards of the Coast kind of went with when setting up this book, that they generally de-group. So they spread the dinosaurs out through the book. They spread all the dragons out across the book and everything. Here's the arch-hag, which is a higher state version of hag. And you have the assassin. However, there are weird occasions where you'll have some of the groupings, like you have awakened plants. It's like awakened shrub and awakened tree. So they split up the demons and they split up the dragons and they split up a lot of the dinosaurs, but they still kept together some of the creatures, such as the Axebeaks. You got the regular Axebeak and the giant Axebeak, which is new. And you got the Azers, the Pyromancer, and the Sentinel. You have Battle right here. You got Bandits, which is, by the way, the second Monster Monday is about bandits. And this image right here actually fits the scenarios that we talked about in that Monster Monday on Tabletop Wisdom. You have even more bandit stat blocks right here, like a bandit deceiver and a bandit crime ward. You got Banshee, and so forth. As you can see, there's a devil and there's a demon right next to each other. And then there's a basilisk and another devil. And so forth. And we got a Behar and a Beholder. And then we have the Beholder stat block on the backside. Berserkers, which is a bunch of barbarians. You got the Black Dragon. Incidentally, all the different versions of Black Dragon, or each type of dragon, is still collected together. So you have the Black Dragon Wormling, you got the young Black Dragon, the adult Black Dragon, you got the ancient Black Dragon, and then they kind of like did the weird thing where they didn't include the Great Worm or the Ascendant or all the other higher variants of all the dragons after the adult. So you basically cap out at ancient Black Dragon overall. So you got your Wormling, you got your young dragon, you got your adult, and you got your ancient, but not anything higher. Puddings, blights, yet again, you still have all your blights together. You got your twig blight and your needle blight and your vine blight. But you also have a new blight called the Tree of Blight or Tree Blight, and so forth. So there you go. And then you have Grathus Blight, which is the ultimate version of it. So you just have a Tree Blight and then you have a Grathus Blight. So you have a bigger range of your blights, which I actually do very much like. That I have now a CR7 Blight monster as well as a CR16. Definitely making the option for making a deeper adventure or small campaign that's just focused around the Glurathus tree and so forth. You got Blob of Annihilation as well as Blink Dog and so forth. Blue Dragon, they changed up the art style of the Blue Dragon in the newer version, as you can see, and so forth. And I just touched into the beginning of this book overall. I'm not going to show you every single monster, but I did give you a good overall tasting of the book. I'm going to skip to the next back section. And then you get to Appendix A, which is all the animals, which is where you'll find a lot of the dinosaurs, like the Allosaurus, the Ankylosaur. You got an ape, Archelion, which is a giant sea turtle, badger, bat, baboon, and so forth. You got your kitties, you got your various types of snakes, crabs, wolves, elephants, elk, and so forth. Got frogs. You got a giant gorilla, which is actually a giant ape. I don't know why they go with giant ape and just not call it a giant gorilla. That's basically what it is a gorilla. It's kind of weird. They have more range of options, such as a orca, and you also happen to have a new inclusion in giant squid in here as well as giant wasps. So that's pretty cool in itself for the new beasts in the book. I very much do applaud the inclusion of more beasts. You still have the basic lists in the back of the book, as I said before, as well as the collection of the creatures. Please note that there is a serious omission or failure to think of it, but they have all the creatures collected by category, such as all the giants, all the humanoids, monstrosities, but they failed to put the page number right next to them in any of these lists. So you have creatures by type, you got creatures by CR, region, so forth. And the problem with that is they don't put page numbers behind them, which then results in the fact that you cannot quickly reference from this to where you want to go. You would have to, it's like, oh, I want a CR 13 monster. You got a adult brass dragon, adult white dragon, a beholder, a Nelfishni, Raksasha, shadow dragon, storm giant, ultraloth, vampire. Okay. Well, I had to go to the front of the book, and I had to find the name of the monster that I got interested in. And then I had to page to that monster then. Including page numbers in those lists would cut down page flipping immensely, making the lists more usable overall. Now, overall, if you're going to be running Dungeons & Dragons 2024, you definitely want this book as a Dungeon Master, because this gives you all your fundamental creatures. However, if you have the original Monster Manual, this also does perfectly fine running Dungeons & Dragons 2024 if you happen to have this one. Incidentally, this book is probably going on sale now, or will be marked down, so it'll be a lot cheaper overall to get than this one. However, also note, there's some creatures or humanoid type creatures that are not included in this book. There's no orcs, there's no drow. There's a few other humanoid type species that are no longer included in this monster manual. So if you want to run those, you're going to have to go and get the old version monster manual to run those. So even if you have this one for Dungeons & Dragons 2024, it still is worth picking up this one for 2024, as there are creatures in this book, or peoples that are not included in that book, in this book. So there you go. So, if you are running Dungeons and Dragons 2024, do you want this book? You know what? Honestly, if you have the money and you just want to run Dungeons and Dragons 2014, this book is a nice addition to your collection for Dungeons and Dragons 2014. However, it is not the best bang for your buck. There's a lot of duplication of creatures in this book. There are some nice updates to some creatures. You can use some of the creatures out of this book as alternate versions of your creatures, so you can add more variety to your campaigns. But if you're running Dungeons and Dragons 2014 or Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, you are perfectly fine ignoring this book. You are better off, say, like picking up, say, like the Battle Zoo books from Roll for Combat, or picking up the Tome of Beasts books and Creature Codex from Kobold Press. You'll get way more value out of those books than picking up this book for Dungeons & Dragons 2014. Heck, if you have Dungeons & Dragons 2014 Monster Manual and you're going into Dungeons & Dragons 2024, you still would be better off buying the Battle Zoo Bestiary books, the Battle Zoo books from Roll for Combat, as well as the books from Kobold Press, as well as Nord Games. You'll still be better off going to those publishers and picking up those books as opposed to buying this book. Still, if you are a completionist, so and so forth, and you still really want to have this book, at that point, I guess, sure, after you've bought these, and these are, by the way, much better than this overall, then sure, I guess, go ahead and buy this. But my money is, if you're running Dungeons & Dragons 2014 or even Dungeons & Dragons 2024, the Classic Monster Manual is pretty darn solid. It's probably really cheap now. And if you want to add and expand besides doing homebrew shenanigans or going over to like Tabletop Wisdom and getting the advice from the Monster Mondays videos on homebrewing or modifying creatures, as well as the various other homebrew videos we've done, these books right here, the Battle Zoo and the Kobold Press Tome of Beast books, as well as the Creature Codex, are excellent books to add into your collection of monster books. There's also some really nice monster books from Legendary Games that have some nice variety of monsters, as well as Nord Games that also have really nice monsters in them. And you'll get way more value out of those books than you would get out of this book. So, ultimately, for Dungeons & Dragons 2014, this is sort of a 3-star situation. And in the case of Dungeons & Dragons 2024, this is also a 3-star situation. It's not fundamentally flawed. You get some value out of it still. It's still a decent book overall. It's just, you don't get as much as you do as if you were to buy these books and if you bought this book. If you have this book is just an alt version that's missing a few creatures and has a few more creatures. But if you don't have this book and you have 2020, you want to have Dungeons & Dragons 2024, you could probably still buy this book for cheaper value. It's still perfectly good. But you can pick this up instead and then still go on to getting these books right here. So it's a difficult situation. If you want to save on money, I would definitely go with that monster manual and maybe pick up these books over the 2024. If you are running 2024 Dungeons and Dragons and you don't, if you want it specifically for 2024, you pick this one up and then you pick up these books right here. So it's a little bit complicated. This book overall is simply just a retread of this earlier book with some adjustments to various creatures' stat blocks, making them a little bit more balanced and effective at their CR level. However, Kobold Press already did that, as well as Battle Zoo. And their books get you more monsters at a better price point than this. So if it's a straight up fight between this book and those books win. So if you happen to enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And go ahead and check out Tabletop Wisdom, which is another YouTube channel I do with John. It's more of a DM advice channel that occasionally touches into player advice and people advice as well. Mainly focused on Dungeons & Dragons 2014 and 2024, but we also dabble into a bit of Call of Cthulhu advice and Pathfinder 2nd Edition conversation here and there, as well as a bit of OSR. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month. And see you next time. Ciao.